by moving in on Taiwan.
North Korea can send a missile?
And then you have the fact that the president's not conceding could really embolden some potential adversaries, some countries that are more on the brink of whether they're going to be a democracy or not, and they could look to the U.S. and say, like, well, hey, if it's happening there, why should it not happen here?
Now, Carol, I want to ask you about Attorney General Bill Barr. The New York Times and Washington Post report he's considering resigning before the end of President Trump's term. What are they saying?
They're saying that the Attorney General has told close associates of his that he may leave before the inauguration. They caveat this by saying that this is something that the Attorney General had talked about in previous weeks, so they're trying to cast this as something that's not a direct result from his real falling out, essentially, with the president over the Attorney General's comments saying that he hadn't seen any election fraud, widespread election fraud, nothing that would overturn the results. But look, this is a frayed relationship. The president's privately saying he might fire him. He said publicly that left open the question of whether or not he has confidence in him. So this would be a way for Barr to get ahead of that and leave, rather, as opposed to being fired if he were to do that.
Carol, just one more quick question for you that I want to ask, just because I think it's important to put these foreign policy concerns into context here. Now, former President Barack Obama also made a number of controversial moves before his White House exit, including removing decades-long preferential privileges for Cuban immigrants, accelerating hiring to federal agencies, and commuting Chelsea Manning's prison sentence. So are President Trump's moves that uncommon?
It's a great question, Savannah, and it's an important one because they are not uncommon in the sense that presidents do this all the time, as you just noted. What's a little different about what President Trump is doing is the level of effort that he's doing. For instance, those troop withdrawals, that's just not really heard of for them for a president to announce that. But as you know, Barack Obama did very similar things. I covered that. They called it nailing down the furniture in 2016.
Carol, as always, thanks so much.
As Carol just mentioned, the new Pentagon Chief of Staff, Kash Patel, is blocking some Pentagon officials from working with the Biden transition team. That's according to
because if them boys send that missile, why the hell would they let Biden know? Only person got insight to that is Trump. And he ain't going out without a bang.
No. So, I mean, in a word, we don't. There were a number of the officials who Carol Lee, who we just heard from and I spoke with about this story, a number of them had opinions, but we didn't have anyone who could tell us that he had actually enunciated in some way why he wanted to do this. What is clear, though, is he's putting a markedly political spin on the information, which really differs from transitions in the past. The way that he's doing it is, number one, when the requests for information come in from the Biden transition team to the Pentagon transition people, the information comes to Kash Patel, and he's deciding he doles it out to who it is that might answer it. Now, in the past, that's usually been career civilians, what the Pentagon calls subject matter experts, and often military officials who will answer these often technical, operational kind of questions. The policy questions would sometimes go to politicals. In this case, though, Kash Patel is specifically doling it out to people and providing talking points, or making sure that these people stick to their talking points, so that the information that's then provided to the Biden team has a political spin that is more favorable to the Trump administration. The other thing that we know that he's doing is when the requests for interviews come in, he has to, either him or the civilian transition lead, Tom Muir, have to sign off on every single one. And they also look at every request for interviews and decide whether other people, including politicals, senior politicals, often people who've just gotten to the building, will be part of those meetings, Joe.
So, to be clear, so is the actual information...
I mean, what if this is too big for Biden? What if Trump got all this money mixed up with other leaders and Biden don't stand a chance in that house? Trump holding his head up in the White House with the bills and the own people.
They held a background conference call where they addressed some of these issues. They insist that, in fact,